2026 has been rough for retro handhelds. Before it, every few months we'd get another device that's just a little different, that at the end of the day would feel like a carbon copy of something we've seen dozens of times. Thankfully, there were a few exceptions, but since the beginning of the year, what was already questionably redundant came to a full halt. Hate me for calling it out or completely disagree if you feel different, but one thing for sure is I have to give Anbernic some credit. It's no secret their ideas do not always land, but thankfully, they're one of the very few companies still willing to experiment with form factors. After clamshells, verticals, sliders, candy bars, we now have this, the Anbernic RG Rotate. Fast forward to now, things are looking bright with Retroid, INEO, Magni, and many more finally coming back to the space after Ramageddon. But make no mistakes, Anbernic almost single-handedly kept this product category alive, so thank you Anbernic. Even when a device isn't for everyone, at least they're trying something new. And that's exactly what the RG Rotate is. It's weird, it's different, it's new and fun, and I kinda like it. If you enjoy retro handhelds, unique gaming hardware, and brutally honest reviews like this one, consider subscribing because that's exactly what you'll find here every single week. So the moment you pick up the Rotate, you already know this isn't going to be a normal review. Everything revolves around that rotating mechanism. It's one of those designs where your first instinct is just to fidget with the thing, as if it is the very thing that it's designed for. As if that is all it did. It's surprisingly satisfying. It immediately makes the handheld stand out in a sea of devices that all look nearly identical. Whether that rotation actually makes the handheld better is another discussion entirely, but from a design perspective, I genuinely appreciate that someone had the courage to build something that no one else does. After spending some time with it, I realized something. The rotating design isn't really about making the experience dramatically better. It's about giving you options. Sometimes you'll rotate it because it feels more comfortable for a certain game. Sometimes you'll rotate it simply because you can. It's fun, it's different. I think there's value in that. Not every product has to revolutionize the category. Sometimes it's enough just to make it interesting again. That being said, there is one thing I keep running into. No matter how I hold the Rotate, I never find the correct grip. Don't misunderstand me, this isn't an ergonomic disaster, it's not uncomfortable, but it also never reaches that point where you forget you holding it. It always feels like you're making a compromise, but after a while you stop searching for the perfect way to hold it because I genuinely don't think one exists. Instead, you simply close it back to being a square where you lose your inputs and suddenly you're holding this little compact marvel that makes you feel like that kid that imagined what the future would look like. In a way, it tells you what shape it should have, but it's when bringing it back to its most basic form that it shines. This thing is a contradiction in the best of ways. But eventually, it isn't about its rotating gimmick anymore, or at least it becomes a supporting cast to this protagonist. After all, it's designed to play games, and play games it will. And that's the part where we'd probably lean on specs and look. I can absolutely admit when I'm late to the party, so I'll spare you the trouble beyond putting a fancy slide on the screen. Performance is also another area where it feels unnecessary to speak on, but in the event that you see my review before anyone else's, GameCube and Wii is probably where you'd be asking too much. Some games will work, heck, some light Switch and PS2 games even might work, but just know that you're trying to squeeze a waterfall out of a lemon at that point. Rather, if you feel like emulation is not enough, I'd recommend turning your attention to native Android titles from the Play Store, the Epic Store, and even native ports. You'll find more than enough to keep you captivated for days/months. While not everything would work the way that some might hope, you are far more likely to feel held back by the inputs than what this chip can put out, especially considering the value and price point of the RG Rotate. The software gets out of the way, it's Android. Things like streaming services and even media playback will work fine on the RG Rotate, but truly this device works best when wanting to just enjoy games instead of analyzing the hardware. But if analyzing the hardware we must, the Rotate is essentially a collection of dome tactile style buttons. Very short travel, very clicky, and very passable, but without ever being a hint of, ooh, that's exactly the buttons I was hoping for on my handheld. Look, I won't pretend. Some of you watch my controller reviews. I'll happily self-proclaim myself to be an input master, and the latest Anbernic simply isn't it. Much like the RGDS, those buttons do a better job at reminding me I wish it was something else than they make me content. Hard to rapid tap, extremely challenging for sequence, and not necessarily super comfortable for long durations. But for a quick pull out of my pocket and game for 15 minutes, oh, it absolutely is fine then. Inputs are always quite challenging on controllers, and handhelds are effectively controllers with a screen in between, so let me know down in the comments, what is the one handheld that has your favorite input, feel, and switch types? And while you do that, and before I forget, the RG Rotate was sent to me by Anbernic so that I could produce this review. No demands, no cash, no let us see before you post. Thanks Anbernic for sending it my way. Let's carry on. I'm actually curious where everyone stands because I think this device could divide people up until picking it up. So before we answer the final question of this review, let me quickly address the other two important elements, the screen and the audio. The screen is good for what it's meant to play. That's probably an area where native Android titles might suffer a bit, not from the color or brightness, that's good, rather more from the response time side of the fence. This panel is a stark reminder that it is 60 FPS and that it isn't OLED. In the handheld communities, we are so spoiled with the quality of panels we get, and the RG Rotate is by no means ugly or unacceptable. It's just not an element of it that feels in any kind of way groundbreaking. In fact, it reminds us a little bit that much better exists. But at that sub 100 entry price point, this thing is absolutely fine to run my 3 decades plus old GB and NES games. The audio, on the other hand, and what a joy this has been, is more than acceptable. There are moments when I find myself thinking, shocking that this much volume and decent quality comes out of that little square. And I know quite a few are buying the RG Rotate to have a 2026 pocket watch that's also an MP3 player. Brother, I get it, and if I could describe it by one thing, it would be that. A slightly bigger pocket watch that's great for music, granted with wireless earbuds because no 3.5mm jack, but also to play some games on the go. And because I don't always have Bluetooth earbuds with me, well, I'm happy that the sound coming out of the Rotato is perfectly serviceable and then some. So last question, who is it for and is it for you? It's definitely for enthusiasts. It's definitely for those who appreciate a unique form factor, and more importantly, for those who have really a lot of nostalgia for those super low to emulate systems of old. To me, systems like NES, SNES, Genesis, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, those are the types of systems that shines with this. Can you emulate sticks with this D-pad? Yes, you can, but that D-pad is simply not good enough to hope to carry that task in most case scenarios. And yes, this includes stick games that don't use the right stick. Its biggest selling point is probably the biggest reason some people won't like it. Not because it's a square, that's cool. Not because it rotates, that's cool too. No, rather because its biggest selling point, that it is a square and it rotates, is also why they had to make so many compromises, such as inputs, ergonomics, power, etc. It's absolutely easy to love it for the novelty, but it isn't built with the power to last you into a year of I'm fully content with it. It doesn't have the chops of a Odin 3 or a Thor. It's built to live rent-free on your night table, and if you buy it for that, it'll probably outlive an Odin 3. The build quality does feel like some of the best Anbernic has put out, especially if going for the Aurora Silver model, so I'm not worried for this thing decaying. And if using it for low power emulation and tasks such as listening to music or giving me time, I also believe this thing will outlive many other devices I have because its goal is simply not to give me an upper echelon experience. Its goal is to give me the same benefits that something intemporal like a pocket watch gave. Only this thing is built with 2026 in mind, an age where looking at the time is no longer a conversation starter, but something that looks similar that can play games, play music, and help you catch up with your shows is definitely gonna strike a conversation amongst your friends and loved ones. So here are my final thoughts. The Anbernic RG Rotate isn't trying to redefine retro gaming. It's trying to remind us that hardware can still be fun. And in a market that's becoming increasingly predictable, I think that's worth celebrating. No, the ergonomics aren't perfect. There isn't one magical grip that suddenly makes everything click. And even if there was, I wouldn't want it. Because despite its shortcomings, I genuinely enjoy using it. It's quirky, it's unique, it's memorable. And honestly, that's more than I can say about a lot of retro handhelds released over the last year. Not every experiment needs to become the new standard. Sometimes it's enough that someone was willing to try. For me, the Rotato is one of those products. It's not going to be for everyone, but I'm really glad it exists, and it definitely is for me. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And as always, thanks for watching. My name is Clef, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.